All right, well, paint has dried overnight. We're moving on to the driver's side. We're racing weather incoming next week, so we got to get going. All right, what we got on this side is, since I'm not removing this riser, I've still got some dirt and debris behind here that I can't get my fat little paw back there to clean it out. So I've devised a way that I think will work, and I can get in there and blow it out. And I've also devised a way to be able to get back there and paint the pour 15 to at least get some pour 15 on it. I don't have any rust holes on the back side of this. I looked from underneath the dash, so if I can just get it treated with some pour 15, hopefully that'll stop the rust, and I should be able to get a brush up in this side, but it's just right around the base of this riser on the back side. I can't get pour 15, but like I said, I think I have a way devised. So let me get set up, we'll get this cleaned up and get started. Okay, before I get started, I'll show you what I think I've got devised here that's going to work. I took my shop vac and I have the hose shoved in on this side, wedged so that it can't get out. I took a leftover piece of brake tubing that is curved, and I can take my air nozzle and stick on there and blow and push all of the debris towards this vacuum. At least that's the plan anyway. Hopefully that will stay where I want it to stay. So if not, we'll back up and regroup. I improvise and adapt and try to work with what I got around the shop. I don't have a ton of money to go out and buy a bunch of different things, so I work with what I got. So let's get going. I'm gonna stand to the side so I don't get crap out of it. Do what I wanted it to do. A little more up here for me to get out of there, but you just can't get back there to feel. There's a little bit of debris in there. I'm going to blow it out this way and see if I can get it to come out, get the rest of it out. Eyes closed. Debris hitting my arm, so I must be doing something. Oh yeah, a lot less debris. Alright, I think we're in the game here. I think this is going to work just fine. So, the thing about the pour 15 is, even if there's a little bit of trash back there, if you get it coated in the pour 15, it'll lock down and it'll be there and it'll be encapsulated. This pour 15 is pretty well self-leveling. If you've never used it, you can smear it on. It looks like it's got brush marks in it. You walk away for a couple minutes and it flattens out, lays down, and gives a glossy hard surface. So not particularly worried about that. Now let me go get my little brush I've devised that I think will work to sneak back there and paint on some pour 15 in the back. Hang on, let me get that. Alright, let me show you what I've got here. This is a kind of a boar brush, but it's actually like a soft nylon bristle brush. For what I'm fixing to use it for, it ought to work fine. I can reach with this all the way around, and I can actually feel it. I can touch it on this side, so if I can smear it and rub it on all back here with this little brush, I should be able to come around and reach this side and get where I can completely coat everything back there. So let me get a little pour 15, my gloves, and see if we can go on and get this swab some on this area so that we can go ahead and get it to where it's drying. Like I said, we're racing time and weather. If I don't get as much done as I want to get done, I'm going to end up putting some kind of tarp over this mess to keep it from getting wet again. If it gets wet, I'll be a few days waiting on it to dry out, and it looks like we're going to have like 3 days of weather. So I got to get cracking today, and maybe tomorrow. It's a race. Beat the weather. Okay. Let's dip up some more paint here. Paint blinds, gotta love it. Well, I just put it out here with this little thing you can see. I just put paint on. Smearing it around, and that's all you're trying to do is get it applied back there. But look, guys, this stuff, you don't want to aerosolize it. You don't want to try to spray it. This stuff is bad news if it gets in your lungs. You just really don't want to spray. Not a big deal. Grinder take 415 off. That's the only way you can get it off. It's mechanical removal of 415, because you won't get it off with a softener unless it's still wet. Normally we've got a brush to do, a regular paintbrush to do all this up in here, but just one more thing I got to clean some. Got everything cleaned up, brushes and the little cup, everything. That's a good initial first coat. We will gonna have to let that sit up and dry, and that's fine because we got to run some errands. Mother's Day. All right, real quick, the riser I made for this side, whew, blew a bunch of debris over here. I'm gonna have to clean this from the other side. Anyway, this was all dry, so it's okay. Anyway, the riser I made last night off camera after we got done shooting, I went ahead and scuffed this up, and I painted it in 415, and I let it tack up. If you're going to prime and paint a piece like this, it's got 415 on it. When the paint is just 415 is just tacky, and you can touch it and feel it tack, but it doesn't really come off on your finger, it's good to go to prime. Okay, it's going to react and it's going to act weird. Okay. Just spray it, let it react, let everything, then let everything dry together. Because this is the way I've done it for years. This is the way an old body shop man told me to do it when you're painting 415. What he told me was, what he had found is that when the 415 is still tacky, if you'll hit it with your primer, it'll actually bond. If you let the 415 dry 100% and get this hard glassy finish on it, paint won't stick to it real easy, and it's hard to sand to get it to get enough bite for paint to stick to it. So while this was still, like I said, tacky, I hit it with a primer, let it react, and I'm gonna give it a light scuff, and I'm gonna hit it with primer again, let that dry, and then I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with a top coat, just a little spray bomb paint, and that should help this piece keep it from rusting, because as we know, this is just coffee can. So, but if you keep it protected, it'll last just fine. And don't let a bunch of leaves get built up in this again. Since we know what the problem is, we can prevent it. So there you go. All right, we went ahead and touched up the primer on this, scuffed it down, hit it with a little more primer. I'm just using some spray bomb. This is Krylon Industrial, and supposed to be tough rust preventative enamel. So I've used stuff like this before. I've used the Ace Hardware brand red oxide primers. They're usually pretty decent. Sure, there's a better red oxide primer out there, but for your average at-home repair, this stuff works just fine. So, all right, we're gonna put a nail in it right there for a little while. We'll be back. All right, well, we've got all our errands run. We're back. Now, let's move on and let's talk about what I have here. This is a scrap hood that I had bought from my son's Camry, and he ended up wrecking and totaling the car before I even got a chance to put it on. So, I have this hood which I'm going to cut up and use for repair metal in this car. It's off a 96 or 95 Toyota Camry. It's good metal. It's already painted. Not a whole lot I'm going to have to do to it. So, one of the things I want to talk about is these different shapes. I can use the bracing with my plasma cutter as a guide and go around and cut out different shapes that I need. If I needed something oddball besides that, I could just go on the top of the hood, cut out what I need. But an old body man years ago, I used to watch him, and he would take hoods off of old crap vehicles that didn't really matter, and that's how he got most of his metal when he was restoring a car. He also did collisions, so when cars would come in and the hoods would be bent up or whatever, he didn't just throw that metal away. It may be a little bent, but you had big expanses of metal, and he could go in, cut out a repair patch, and put it on a car and keep on moving. So, good cheap way, didn't cost me anything, I've already paid for it. Might as well get some use out of it, right? So, let's get set up. We're going to cut out a piece of it, start fitting it to the cowl bucket. Well, there it is. Not real pretty, but it's cut out, and it did it relatively quickly. No muss, no fuss. 110 jigs, plasma cutter. Just need to practice on my technique. I need to see about coming up with one of those guides that you can put on the tip. I'm sure that would help, because I kept bumping the metal tip to the metal and it sticks and then it stops going, and I got to learn the right speed travel, you know, whatever. You learn by doing. So anyway, now I'm gonna get this piece of metal fit into this cowl, do a little measuring, a little figuring, and we'll get it fitted up. Okay, let me just start right here and say, if you are a metal worker, my hat is off to you. I'm not a metal worker. I am pretending to be a metal worker. It is an art, but it can be done. So, with that said, let me show you what I've done. Alright, well, you should be able to see that I have a panel stuck right here that I'm going to try to glue with the pour patch in place. If it does what it says it will do, it should be there. I've got to do a little reading and research and see if it needs to be stuck to bare metal or if it will stick to paint. If it sticks to paint, we should be okay. If it stick to bare metal, I got some work to do. But let me pull this piece out and we'll talk about it. Alright, she's a little crude, but you have got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 different angles. So this piece has to be manipulated by hand, by hammer, and by eyeball. It's up in behind the dash, kind of hard to get to. I found that I could reach through the hole and work the panel in that way, and it goes in and fits really well. Biggest thing I've been trying to do is to match the contours inside and to get the panel piece that I made up tight, because I want to be able to use as little of that pour patch adhesive as possible, and once I stick it in place, I'm trying to fit. The last thing I'm trying to figure out is how to hold this piece up against the vehicle tightly, because I want it pulled up tight so that when that stuff cures, that's where it stays. So let me try to figure that little piece of the puzzle out, and we'll go from there. Alright, well, here goes nothing. This is time to put on this pour patch. I took, while this piece was in there, and I lightly spritzed it with a little paint so I'd know where to not put the pour patch. Put it here, it's not going to be adhering it to anything. So we're going to run a nice healthy bead around the perimeter of it and see if we can stick it up in there. Run up. So I'm watch it for a second, see if it sags. It's actually tucked up down seam on this end. It doesn't seem to sag. Like it stays right where you put it. Yeah. Alright. See if I can get it in there without dropping it. Oh, and by the way, I kind of did a little more fitting and fiddling with this piece. It fits a little tighter, but it's still not holding it up there like I want. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. All right, well, it looks like this pour patch is going to be a win. Never used it before. Kind of goes out, comes out of the tube about to like silicone. Doesn't really droop and sag. I had a couple of places I was working right here, wanted to try to drop through, but it wasn't terrible. Just messed with it a little bit, smeared it around, put a little more dab on there, and just messed with it and got it to cover. We're gonna let it dry, and we'll be back tomorrow to see how it looks. In the meantime, why don't you go out and watch another one of my videos coming on the screen right now.